Hello, my name's Paul. I just wanted to do a quick short video for the benefit of any user or anybody out there thinking of taking or using a drug called Propecia, which is a drug which was first brought on the market by drug company Merck for treatment of enlarged prostates in men, particularly older men. And it was discovered once the drug was brought on the market that it could reduce, slow down or halt hair loss, and that was when in 1997 the drug manufacturer Merck brought it out for treatment of male pattern baldness, and it became available cosmetically through a private prescription throughout the world, on a prescription only basis, private medication from your GP, your family doctor. I wish personally I'd never heard of the drug, and I wished I'd never taken it because it's completely ruined my life, and the story I'm about to tell you about beggars belief, and I'm hoping it's watched by many men out there that are contemplating doing something to treat the hair loss, because 3 years ago when I turned 33, I became quite insecure, paranoid and concerned about my appearance and what I would look like to my work colleagues, my family, prospective partners with no hair. So I panicked, and that's when I went to see my family GP that ran some blood tests in 2010 to rule out any malfunctioning of my thyroid. And the blood test came back normal, and he believed that I was suffering from a hereditary form of male pattern hair loss. And it was then that my family GP suggested that I used a drug called Propecia. That's the shelf name. The drug name is Finasteride. My doctor in 2010, when I went to see him, he said he could write me a prescription to take this particular medication. He described the benefits and said that it's very successful, and the men that he prescribed the drug to was very happy and satisfied by the results that they'd seen from taking the Propecia. And the only side effects that he mentioned to me, my family GP, 3 years ago, was the possibility of some sexual dysfunction as a result of taking Propecia. But he said to me at that time that if I continued taking the Propecia, that the side effects would go away, or if I continued on the medication, that they would also go away. So to me it was like a no-brainer. I thought, I've got nothing to lose by trying this medication. So he wrote me a prescription for 3 months, a 3-month supply, which cost me about £90. I went to Boots pharmacy in the UK to cash in my prescription from my GP, and I started the medication in I think it was August 2010. Soon after I started taking the medication, probably 5 to 6 weeks in, I started to notice my mood dramatically changed. I started to get very, very low mood, very dark thoughts, and I think probably about 8 or 9 weeks into taking the medication, I, for some reason, recorded a video much like this to my partner at the time, who I was with, and said that I didn't want to live anymore, which was totally out of character, completely out of the blue. And there was no mention in 2010 on the Propecia side effects labelling that this drug could cause depression or suicidal thoughts or anything of that nature. So I didn't relate it, didn't connect it to the drug, nothing like that. And probably, like I say, probably approaching 10 weeks into the medication, my family became very concerned about my well-being and my mental state, that they decided to take me to my father took me to my family GP, who was very concerned for me and sent out the crisis team, the local crisis resolution team, a mental health team, to come and see me at my home address. everything in my life was perfect. There was no issues with me whatsoever. I was happy at work, I was happy in my relationship, sex life was completely fine, there was no issues. I was happy, I was loving life. There was no reason for me to feel how I was feeling. It was completely out of control, the negative side effects that I was feeling. Then I'd probably say about 12 weeks in, on my 3rd month of taking Propecia, my partner at the time fell pregnant, and probably 6 weeks into the pregnancy we discovered that the baby was growing in her fallopian tube, which was very, very dangerous, and my partner almost collapsed at work. I had to take her to the hospital, the emergency room, straight from work, where it was established it was definitely an ectopic pregnancy, and they stated that she needed to go in for an emergency operation to, 1, remove the pregnancy, and 2, to actually remove her fallopian tube, to terminate the pregnancy, because had the pregnancy ruptured the fallopian tube, it could have killed her. And I have no doubts about it now, looking back, that Propecia has caused the ectopic pregnancy to my then partner. Without a shadow of a doubt, I've no doubts about it, that drug caused the ectopic pregnancy. People can say, you know, they can have their own theories on it and their own skeptics on whether or not it was the Propecia, because ectopic pregnancies can happen to anybody, even healthy people that have never taken Propecia. But it does state on the side effects labelling for Propecia that it's not to be handled or come in contact with women that are pregnant or likely to become pregnant. Now, what does that tell you? To me, I believe that the finasteride that was within my system was transferred to my partner at the time through my sperm, which has caused this pregnancy to develop unnaturally, and cause the pregnancy to start growing and developing in a tube instead of a womb, which I have no doubts about it, that Propecia was to blame. Anyway, at that time, I just decided to come off the Propecia after 3 months usage, because my partner's health and well-being and recovery was more important to me than my hair loss. So I decided to just stop taking the medication, cold turkey. I didn't come off it gradually, I just stopped taking it, and I thought, no, now I need to focus all my efforts on getting my partner back on the mend, because she was almost unable to walk as a result of having the termination and the operation to remove her fallopian tube. So I just, you know, disregarded my hair loss. It was not important to me. My partner's health was what was most important to me at the time. So I come off the Propecia, and fortunately my health seemed to recover, and having taken about 3 months off work in 2010, because of my low mood and the abnormal, how can I describe it, just feeling completely out of sorts, that seemed to bounce back, and I almost recovered back to my normal pre-Propecia state. All throughout my taking of Propecia in 2010, therein and thereafter, I suffered no sexual side effects whatsoever from the medication. It was just the mental side effects that I had some problems with in terms of the drug. Now, 7 or 8 weeks after my partner had recovered from the operation, she conceived again and became pregnant, and fortunately this time managed to carry the pregnancy full term, and I was gifted a beautiful baby girl, which I was ecstatic and made up about, as you can probably imagine. Unfortunately, my partner to my little girl, me and her separated in December 2012, and it was soon after this time that my whole life just turned upside down. We separated in December 2012. I moved out and began living with a friend of mine for a couple of weeks until I found my own place just before Christmas. I think I moved into my new place about the 20th of December, so about 4 or 5 days before Christmas 2012, and I began being newly single again. I started to pay particular attention to my hair loss, and I thought I wouldn't be too appealing to the opposite sex with no hair. So my insecurities got the better of me again, so I decided to start taking Propecia again, which turned out to be the worst mistake of my life. This time I went online to an online pharmacy in the UK, which some of you may be familiar with, called Boots, Boots, Boots.com. They allow you to go through a screening process online to determine whether or not you're suitable for this medication, Propecia. Now, a 14-year-old could pass the criteria, the consultation online. It's that easy. So you know, a trained monkey could do it. So long as you give the right answers. It was simple questions along the lines of: is hair loss hereditary? Does family members suffer with hair loss? How long have you had hair loss for? That kind of thing. And so long as you give the right answers, you get approved for the drug instantaneously online. And I ordered a 1-month supply of Propecia in February 2014. Cost me £45. 2 or 3 days later, the pills arrived through the post, and I began taking the Propecia again. I think it would have been early March, so March 2013. At this time, it also coincided with a time where I'd started dating again, and I'd met a girl called Hayley, who I felt very fondly about. We were intimate, I had no problems sexually, everything was fine. This was just at the commencement of me taking Propecia for the second time. And I would say I probably met Hayley maybe 2 to 4 weeks before Propecia, before I started taking Propecia, so in February 2013. The relationship was fine, it was going perfectly well, developing in the right directions, and I actually thought Hayley could be the one for me, that I would spend probably the rest of my life with very happily. Unbeknown to me, probably 6 weeks after we'd got to know each other and we'd been in a relationship with each other, I started to suffer with sexual side effects of the Propecia. Now, at that time, I began to become quite delusional, and I didn't, first of all, attribute or associate what was going wrong with me down to my usage of Propecia. I remember one time I tried to be intimate with Hayley, and it just didn't happen. I couldn't get an erection, and I couldn't understand why. I'd never had this problem at all before in my entire life. 2 or 3 days after this, I noticed that the tip of my penis became very, very red and wrinkled, and I thought I may have contracted some form of sexually transmitted disease from Hayley, and almost accused her of giving me an STD, which wasn't the case. I went to a sexual health screening clinic and got checked out for the obvious sexually transmitted diseases such as chlamydia, that kind of thing. They performed all the necessary testings and it came back as negative. I then went to my family GP and explained the situation to them and said that I was actually getting pains in the shaft of my penis itself, which I was, like shooting pains, and also showed them the tip of my penis, which was bright red, like a rash on the tip of my penis. They thought I could have been suffering from something called prostatitis, or prostritis, and prescribed me a 14-day course of antibiotics called ciprofloxacin to try and clear up any infection caused by this particular condition called prostatitis. That had no effect in terms of me taking the ciprofloxacin, the antibiotic, and from that day forward I just tended to go from bad to worse. 3 weeks into my usage of Propecia, I was unable to get any form of erection whatsoever. Then came the onset of my insomnia. I decided to stop taking the Propecia because I thought, well, there's nothing else that could be causing me to suffer with the erectile dysfunction that I was experiencing. So I come off the drug, and from ceasing taking the drug was when things got really, really severe. Probably a week after I'd stopped taking the Propecia, I suffered with intense insomnia which lasted nearly a week. I didn't sleep for a week, at all. I maybe got 1 or 2 hours per day, if that. I was spiralling into the worst state of my life that I'd ever been in. I had to contact work again, phone in sick, and I was just not prepared for what was to come. So the insomnia was just so intense. I told my brother that I'd been taking this Propecia, and I believed that it was the cause of my insomnia, of my erectile dysfunction. He took me to my family GP. They prescribed me temazepam, which is a sleeping pill, which at least allowed me on the first day 5 or 6 hours sleep, and I'd gone nearly a week with nothing, so that was fantastic. But it was just masking the real problem. I remember waking up probably maybe 2 or 3 days after I'd had my bout of insomnia. I woke up one morning and I seriously could not feel my penis, my genitals. They was completely numb. I had no connection from my brain to my genitals. It was completely numb. I couldn't feel anything at all. I woke up one morning, my penis was very, very cold, very numb. It was just surreal. I just could not believe what was happening. So things just began to spiral and get worse and worse and worse. After this, probably 2 or 3 days after this, I noticed that I was no longer getting morning erections, no erections through my sleep, during my sleep, nocturnal erections, nothing. They'd all gone, totally disappeared. And I now know that the rash to the tip of my penis was actually the onset of penile shrinkage. The skin was becoming dishevelled, and this was directly as a result of losing the morning erections, nighttime erections, and it was actually causing my penis to shrink and not get any sufficient blood flow to my penis. It was very cold, and it just felt generally numb. I tried to be intimate with Hayley again, probably 3 or 4 weeks after taking the Propecia. After I finished taking the Propecia, I'd been off it 3 or 4 weeks. And I remember one time trying very, with the best will in the world to try and attain an erection. And I remember at one point my penis began to fill at the base where it joins to my body, and it filled about halfway down. It looked and felt disgraceful. I can't even put it into words how it looked, but it filled from the base of my penis to the middle of my penis, and then from the middle of my penis to the tip, maybe say another 2 or 3 inches. It was just flaccid. It was completely, in an unerect state, and I almost freaked out at the sight of what I was looking at. I couldn't believe what I was seeing with my own eyes happening to my own body. My penis was pre-filling halfway, and the rest of it was just flaccid, just floppy. It was just unbelievable. Absolutely, it scared the hell out of me. So I wasn't able to perform sexually. So after that, I mean, as I say, I just kept going down and down and down in terms of my mood, in terms of my sexual state, everything. I would say now we're probably 4 or 5 weeks off the drug, and I started to feel very, very, very low, very depressed in mood, and I also got almost like panic attacks and felt really anxious all the time. I lived on my own, and I barely went out of my house. I just stayed in all the time. I was becoming detached from reality, from the outside world. I just did not know what was going on with me. I didn't have a clue what was happening to me. I almost panicked at the thought of having to go outdoors. I would pace up and down my living room frantically for no reason. I don't know why I was doing it, but I would walk back and forth nearly all day long, just in sheer panic and in a sheer state of anxiety for no reason. Never suffered with depression, anxiety, panic attacks in my entire life. So this was I just felt out of sorts completely. And then after that, I told my dad, I informed my father that I'd been taking this drug, and I believed that it was responsible for the way I was feeling, my sexual side effects, and also my anxiety and depression and everything else. So he took me to my family GP, and it was I think it was the June or July of 2013 that the emergency crisis team, mental health team, came to visit me at my home address. At that time, I was almost on the verge of wanting to kill myself. From out of nowhere, I was compounded with these suicidal thoughts and tendencies to just want to kill myself. And it wasn't, I want to state catastrophically that my suicidal ideation was completely separate to my lack of sexual function. I wasn't feeling depressed or suicidal because I couldn't function sexually. It was completely separate, totally separate. I was starting to get weird thoughts and images, and it was like just totally intrusive thoughts from nowhere of almost been prompted to kill myself. So the crisis team came to see me in early July, advised me to go into a psychiatric mental hospital as a voluntary patient to try and address how I was feeling. So I agreed because I knew I couldn't keep myself safe. I agreed to go into the psychiatric unit, which I did voluntarily. Not a pleasant experience, something that I wouldn't put on my worst enemy. It was horrible. All the time I was in there, my mental state was getting progressively worse and worse and worse. I would wake up every morning continuously for 2 or 3 months, for about the first 2 months while I was in there, with images before I even opened my eyes, when my head was still on the pillow, just as I was regaining consciousness from having a sleep, with just suicidal images that I was seeing with my eyes still closed. I could see myself hanging from the corner of the room, from the wardrobe that was in the corner of the room in the psychiatric unit, or every time I looked out of the window in the psychiatric unit at tall buildings, I was having flashes and images and thoughts of jumping off these tall buildings that I could see. What Propecia, Finasteride, does to your psychological state and your sexual state is just something that you cannot prepare for, and it's what a lot of men who have gone through what I've gone through refer to it as the crash. Now, this crash is what happens when you stop taking the drug. Your body, it plays with your hormones, and in my case, it completely crashed my full system. It just drove my testosterone levels critically low. It was tested while I was in a psychiatric unit, and it was at a level of 6.9 on a range of 7 to 50. Now, a healthy guy of my age, I'm 36, I should have a testosterone level of at least 17, 18, 19, maybe 20 nmol. Now, mine was 6.9. You can get guys in the 70s or 80s with a higher reading than 6.9. Now, when your testosterone level gets that critically low, it alters your brain chemistry. Now, that has an effect on your mental state and your well-being, and naturally can have a negative impact on your overall health. Everybody needs a decent level of testosterone to function, to maintain muscular, to maintain, proper muscular developing. You need testosterone for your brain functioning, your cognitive functioning, and for your for general maintaining of your sexual functioning, such as your penis and its structure and everything else. Now, what people maybe don't know is that testosterone is converted into a more potent and more powerful hormone, which is referred to as DHT, which is abbreviated for testosterone. Testosterone is more powerful than testosterone, and what that hormone does is that naturally maintains a healthy, strong functioning of your genitals, i.e. your penis. It maintains its healthy, normal state. Now, when you're not producing enough testosterone, you're naturally not converting enough into DHT, which I now know has a dramatic effect on your sexual functioning. And Propecia doesn't allow your body to produce enough testosterone to convert into DHT, which is how it allows your hair loss to become halted, reduced or stopped, or promotes regrowth in some men. Now, I've no doubts whatsoever that Propecia can work in being a successful treatment for male pattern hair loss, but at what cost? To me, it cost me my sexual functioning. I'm now close to 17 months off the drug, and I'm still suffering with sexual dysfunction. My penis has shrank to 50% the size it was. It's no longer as long, it's no longer as wide. The girth to my penis has shrunk. It's got thinner, it's got shorter, and this is all as a direct result of me taking Propecia. The drug drove me to 2 or 3 failed suicide attempts, where the police had to, when I came out of the psychiatric unit after being in there about 6 weeks, I tried to go it alone again at home and try to function, but I didn't manage to, and I took some sleeping pills and some alcohol and planned to kill myself in my home address. The police found me at my home address completely intoxicated and unconscious on my living room floor, and took me back into the psychiatric unit, where 4 weeks later, whilst out on an accompanied walk with a member of staff, I absconded from the member of staff and didn't want to live anymore, didn't want to go back to the psychiatric unit, and I got a taxi to a local train station where I was within 800 yards of the train station, and I was compelled and told by these intrusive thoughts I was having to step out in front of a train. That was my plan. I was literally 800 yards away from the train station when plainclothes police officers managed to track me, I believe, through my mobile phone signal, and picked me up. I was arrested, sectioned under the Mental Health Act, and taken back to the psychiatric unit, where I stayed for about another 4 weeks, held, obviously against my will, sectioned under the Mental Health Act for another 4 weeks, where after those 4 weeks I managed to come out back in October 2013. I went back to my home address. At that time I was completely shocked and surprised at the fact that my partner, prior to me taking Propecia, Hayley, decided she wanted to still make a go of the relationship. I told her about obviously my mental state and my sexual state, and she still wanted to give it a go. So I think it was the end of November 2013 she asked me to move into her home address with her, which I did. And I remember prior to leaving the psychiatric unit and after coming out, I would quite often, 2 or 3 days out of 7, just break down into floods of tears, and I would cry and cry and cry for no apparent reason, just because my mood was that low. I couldn't, words can't describe how disgraceful and just what Propecia does to your brain, its functioning, your sexual functioning is just out of this world. Nobody can prepare you for it. Nobody. I never for 1 minute thought I would have experienced what I've gone through in terms of having lost my sexual functioning, having lost my cognitive functioning. Whilst I was in the height of my crash, when I was first admitted to the psychiatric unit, which was in July 2013, I would have something to eat at 12 p.m. lunchtime. My family would come to visit me 1 hour later at 1 p.m. They would ask me what I'd eaten for my dinner 1 hour ago, just 1 hour before they visited, and I couldn't even tell them what I'd eaten. I had no recollection of my short-term memory was just totally shot. I couldn't recall what I'd eaten at all. I really just, when they used to ask me, I just used to say, I'm sorry, I've no idea, I can't even remember. Even though it was an hour ago, 1 hour ago, I just couldn't remember what I'd eaten. Now, it scares the hell out of me what I've gone through. I've got 3 children, and this drug, Propecia, nearly stole, my life away from me and that of my children as well, which is just, there's been about 4 or 5 known suicides linked directly to the usage of Propecia. A 22-year-old called Randy Santman killed himself as a direct result of taking Propecia and the adverse reaction it caused him sexually and mentally. There's been another guy called John Paff. He killed himself by stepping out in front of a train as a direct result of taking Propecia. Only in April this year, 2014, a doctor, an actual qualified doctor called Dr. Daniel Stewart, ended up taking Propecia and killed himself as a direct result of the adverse reactions of taking Propecia. There's been 2 or 3 others as well that are known. And have been documented through a website called the PFS Foundation. I think it's www.pfsfoundation.org, and all information relating to these known suicides which I've just mentioned, and also the studies that are taking place now in Baylor and Brigham University to try and look into the causation of what happens in a subset of men that take this medication, to try and establish where it goes wrong and what they can do to hopefully remedy the ill effects that I'm suffering and lots of other men are suffering around the world. And that's been a massive step in the right direction, and the support that I received through the PFS Foundation, in particular the CEO of the foundation, a guy called John Santman, who's the father of the 22-year-old Propecia suicide victim, has set the foundation up, and he actually phoned me as I was going through the height of my crash and my time in the psychiatric unit, and him and his partner Rosemary McGeady was phenomenal. There was absolutely amazing in terms of the level of support that they showed me, phoned me up and gave me tremendous support. So I'd like to say a special thank you to John and Rosemary for everything that you did for me, and probably if it wasn't for you now, I probably wouldn't still be here now, as well as my family, which is my brother David and my father Roger. There was just out of this world. They came to visit me every single day and ensured that I kept breathing, basically, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here now. And I'd also like to thank Hayley, my ex-partner, who I separated from fairly recently because of the pressures that I was putting myself under in the relationship. I wasn't able to function sexually, and that was putting a strain on me. I was putting pressure on myself to believe I could maintain a normal, healthy relationship, which now I know I'm not able to do, and that's all purely as a result of me taking this poisonous pill, Propecia. I may never be able to have a sexual relationship ever again, and it'll certainly never be a normal sexual relationship, even if I regain some of my sexual functioning. Now, I'm currently taking antidepressant medication, which has allowed me to get back to work, having taken nearly 12 months off work. My mental state has improved, therefore enough to allow me to go back to work and do my job. But life is no longer the way it used to be. I I've no longer got the same drive for life, the same enthusiasm. I don't have the same passion for life. My emotional state is completely subdued. It's also referred to as emotional blunting. I hug my children and feel very little in the way of love and affection, which this drug completely destroys. It makes you cold and callous to any form of good emotion, positive emotion. It just makes you so subdued and so negative, and your whole outlook on life changes. You walk around with this dark cloud hanging over you every single day. And people who have this PFS, post-finasteride syndrome, will be able to relate to exactly what I'm saying and what I've said during this presentation. If I could just tell people one positive message from me doing this, it would be please do not go anywhere near Finasteride Propecia, because it'll be the worst mistake of your life. The side effects from this medication crept up on me very slowly, and in 2010 I made no connection to the negative depressive symptoms that I was receiving. There was no mention on the side effects labelling back in 2010 that it could cause depressive, suicidal thoughts, nothing. And even now, the manufacturers since 2010 in 2012 revised the side effects labelling to mention that it may cause low mood or depression. To me, that is completely an understatement and completely insignificant. It causes suicidal ideation and drives you to the verge of committing suicide. Now, that's not low mood, that's not depression, that is serious suicidal ideation and intrusive thoughts. It plays with your brain chemistry, and it almost compels you and drives you to carry out a suicide. Now, hair loss is the least of my worries now. I just shave it off, shave it short, and I've got far bigger fish to fry now with trying to rebuild my mental state, sexual functioning, and just get through life every day, which is a complete struggle now. It really is a struggle, and I've been off the drug 17 months, I've not been on it, and I still cannot function sexually. My penis is shrunken by 50%, I'm still not getting morning erections, nocturnal erections, nothing, they've all gone. And I've noticed other minor side effects from the medication, which is severely dry skin. I get very dry skin up here in my eyebrows, which flakes off if I rub my eyebrows. I can see it now in front of my eyes, flaking as I rub my eyebrows, down the sides of my nose. I get really bad dry skin and have to apply moisturiser regularly. The insides of my groins are constantly itchy, very itchy. You know, like it's just I've actually lost muscle tone all throughout my body, in particular my legs and my arms, which have gone very thin, which is probably again as a direct result of having low testosterone, because I'm not able to maintain or put on any muscle. I can't gain muscle whatsoever because of my usage of Propecia. I used to be a fairly stocky guy, used to play football and sports all the time. My leg muscles used to be huge, and they're just stick thin now. It's just so not worth the catastrophic ill health effects that this drug causes. As I say, it plays with your brain, it messes with your cognitive function. You'll suffer with mental health problems possibly for the rest of my life, sexual health problems that are probably going to last for the rest of my life. And as I'm sitting here now talking to you, I can't promise that in the next few weeks, months or years I'm not going to kill myself or end my life, because the state of my health and the state of my life now is just in ruins. It's in tatters. It's absolutely undescribable how I feel every single day. Every day now I have to live with the burden of what this drug's done to me. and some days it's just too hard to take, and I question whether or not I can keep going for years to come in this fixed, permanently altered state of mind, way of living, never knowing whether I'll be able to have a relationship of any sort ever again, with anybody, because of my sexual and mental state and physical state. It's just not worth it. It isn't worth it. Had I proportion all my hatred and all my blame towards the drug manufacturers, who have changed the side effects labelling about 4 or 5 times since the drug came on the market in 1997. And I have no doubts in my mind that they knew then what this drug could do to people. They've known all along. And they keep saying that it causes sexual dysfunction in 2% of men. Well, I think that is flawed. That is totally inaccurate. It's more like 50% of users that take Propecia that will suffer permanent damage to your sexual functioning. Permanent. Now, they play on the word it causes persistent sexual dysfunction. It causes permanent dysfunction. It shrunk my genitals and they'll never ever be the same again, ever. I don't care what anybody says. I know the changes to my body, and I know how significant those changes are, and they're beyond repair. They're not. My penis will never regain its normal size or its normal functioning ever again, and I know that for a fact. I can tell because of the changes to it. The skin on my hands have become more dishevelled and more wrinkled. My veins on my hands and all over my body are more prominent. You can see the veins on the backs of my hands, which you could never ever see before Propecia. But these veins are now really prominent, and my skin is very wrinkled and dishevelled. It's aged my skin rapidly, completely rapidly. My grip, my actual strength of, if I go to unscrew a bottle of Coke or something like that, a lid, my grip is just ridiculously weak. I've got really poor grip. This drug, there's far more side effects that this drug causes and gives you, which are not on the side effects labelling. Now, the drug manufacturer Merck are pure evil. They do not care about you or I. All they're interested in is making money, and there's currently mass action lawsuits in America where law firms are gathering together collectively to try and take on the drug manufacturers Merck, in trying to sue them on behalf of hundreds of thousands of men around the world because of the dramatic effects that this drug's cause them ill health, basically. And I believe Merck's way of thinking, if they can make 5 billion, let's say if Merck make £6 million a year from people buying Propecia, if they pay out 1 or 2 million in total to all the victims of Propecia, then you do the maths, it's simple. They're still going to be financially much better off, even despite having to pay out a couple of £1 million in compensation to the men that have been significantly harmed by this drug. They're not bothered about the safety of consumers. They're an evil, corrupt organisation that are simply interested in money. I've got a website, and if you care to take a look at it, it's called www.propeciasideeffects.co.uk. That's www.propeciasideeffects.co.uk. Now, on my website, I've built a page devoted entirely to 5 or 6 medications that Merck have brought onto the market, which has caused catastrophic effects to its users. Obviously, Propecia, which we know about, that I've talked mostly through this video about, leaving men impotent with shrunken genitals, suicidal thoughts, loss of muscle, insomnia, that kind of thing. There was another drug which I'll briefly discuss, which is called Fosamax, which is for treatment for females who suffer with osteoporosis, which is bone density issues. Fosamax is supposed to strengthen the bones, but in actual fact it works in the reverse. In its uses, it can cause femur fractures and actual jaws to rot. It can cause it's been reported by countless women now around the world that some women have actually had to have the jaws rewired, restructured, because Fosamax has corroded and eradicated their jawbone. And one particular scientist who works for Merck is called Donald Kimmel. It's all over the internet, you can read it for yourself. Donald Kimmel was found exchanging emails to other Merck colleagues, ridiculing the victims, calling them oral hogs because they had poor oral hygiene, which was causing their jawbones to rot and disintegrate, which is just, it's just, the guy's evil, pure evil, if he finds it humorous to laugh at women whose jaws are disintegrating from a drug which he's helped devise and bring onto the market and still being sold now. Another drug which was recalled by the FDA is a drug called Vioxx, Vioxx. It was for treatment of arthritis. It was a painkiller, and it killed over at least 50,000 people. It gave them heart attacks and was killing them instantly as soon as they took this particular pill, Vioxx. And the FDA stepped in after a significant number of people had lost their lives to this particular drug, again made by Merck. There's a common theme here, that Merck are becoming world renowned for making dangerous killer drugs. Another drug, another contraption which Merck have got and still using now is called NuvaRing, N-U-V-A, NuvaRing, which is a contraceptive device which is what women use, and they insert up the vagina to stop them getting pregnant. It's like a plastic tube basically, but that's been found to cause blood clots in some of the women that use it, which have been fatal. And again, on my website you can see a video from the parents of a 24-year-old woman that used NuvaRing, and it killed her, caused a blood clot, and she died as a result of using NuvaRing. Another vaccine which Merck are still using now and giving to women in America particularly is a vaccine called Gardasil. Merck claim that this vaccine can reduce the prospect of getting cervical cancer. The studies that have shown it doesn't reduce the risk at all. So basically, they're giving the vaccine to women which is not having any benefit on them. In fact, again, on my website you can see a video from a girl called Brittany Feist, who's in her early 20s, that was given 2 shots of this particular vaccine, Gardasil, and it's disabled her. She's now a cripple basically. She cannot use, she's lost the use of her legs completely and is now wheelchair bound. You can find a video of her on YouTube in which she breaks down in tears, floods of tears, because of the damage that Gardasil, Merck's vaccine, has done to her. There's another girl called Hannah, I forget her surname now, who's on Twitter. She's also crippled and in a wheelchair, again lost the use of her lower limbs as a result of Gardasil. There's hundreds of women around the world that have been badly affected by this vaccine, Gardasil. Again, made by Merck. Merck also produced a growth enhancement drug which the farming industry was feeding to cattle, in particular cows, and it was reported, and only just recently the farmers have decided to stop giving the cattle this drug called Zilmax, Z-I-L-M-A-X. Now what it was doing is it was causing the cows, when they was turning up to be slaughtered, having been fed this growth enhancement drug, Zilmax, that was completely unable to walk. You imagine like cows displaying the traits of being drunk. That's how they was displaying themselves when they was turning up to be transported from one farm to another. They couldn't even walk off the back of the wagons. They was falling over and completely unstable. They couldn't stand. Now the farmers, was in uproar over this, and they've decided they're not even going to give this to the cattle, because obviously, naturally, if they're giving it to these cows, then and we're eating these cows, it's been passed through the food chain to us. Now, Merck have also been found guilty of pouring polluted, cancerous chemicals into local reservoirs in a particular neighbourhood in America, and being found guilty of doing this, of disposing of these cancerous chemicals into a local reservoir. Again, that's on my website. You can read the story for yourself. All this is 100% gospel. There's nothing made up. There's nothing exaggerated in what I've said during this interview. Everything's on the internet for you to find out, the truth about. I'm a very honest and trustworthy, reliable person, and I wouldn't fabricate anything for all I'm doing here is trying to generate awareness, to highlight the evil, disgraceful, untrustworthy, money-driven, corrupt organisation that Merck are, and also to try and warn other people like me and you, who are out there believing that doctors know what they're talking about, doctors believe that these drugs are safe, when they're not safe, because what's been found to be the case is that Merck pay top scientists a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of pounds we're talking about, to write scientific reports about their drugs, which they're trying to get approved through the FDA. And once these scientists are paid a lot of money for writing these reports, they get sent off to the FDA. The FDA believes the scientists, these qualified scientists, that what they write is truthful and honest, and therefore the rubber stamp the fact these new drugs onto the market, which have, as I say, catastrophic, sometimes fatal consequences for the consumers. So what I would urge you to do is to do your own research before you take any medication, whether it's made by Merck or any other pharmaceutical company, and do not trust in what your doctors tell you is the truth, because the truth is the doctors have been lied to as well by Merck and by the FDA that these drugs are safe, and they're not. All they're interested in is making money from me and from you and from anybody else. It's a massive industry, is the pharmaceutical industry, one of the biggest that there is, and there's literally billions and billions and billions of pounds or dollars made every year as a direct result of the pharmaceutical industry. And Merck are one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in America. So in essence, people, all I would just say is think twice before you put anything into your body that shouldn't be there. I would probably say do not take any medication, any pill, any medicine for any reason unless it's going to improve your health. Like, if you've got cancer, then naturally take something that, like chemotherapy or radiation therapy, that's going to prolong your life. If it's not going to prolong your life, please do not take it for cosmetical purposes like I did. I was stupid and believed in the system, and believed that I believed in the system that this drug was safe. I thought taking Propecia was a safe thing to do. It wouldn't have any long-lasting, permanent damage to my body, and I now know that it has. I'm still not right mentally. I'm still not right sexually. If I can deter just one person from watching this video, then I've achieved what I've set out to do. I'm trying to save you and like-minded people from going through the experience that I've gone through, which has not been pleasant at all. So please think twice before you put anything into your body, because I thought taking Propecia was like taking a paracetamol. If you have a headache, some people take a paracetamol to cure the headache. I had hair loss and I took a pill that I thought would halt it and cure it, with no permanency to any of the side effects on the labelling, which is still insignificant and understated completely. It needs to be on there that it causes your penis to shrink, it can make you infertile, it can cause insomnia, it can cause muscle loss, it causes loss of spontaneous nocturnal erections. This is just the tip of the iceberg. It's probably reduced my life expectancy by at least 20 or 30 years. I've aged dramatically in the last 3 years since I took Propecia. It's just not worth it. So please do not take any medication until you've done good, thorough research, and take it from me that Propecia is absolute poison. It's poison, and stay well clear of it. If anybody wants to speak to me about my experiences of taking Propecia, or whether you're out there now considering taking it, I'll quite happily speak to anybody that's in the UK. I'll speak to you on the telephone and tell you exactly what happened to me. Because this video, I still feel like I could talk for hours about the dramatic life-altering effects that drug has caused me, which the drug manufacturer do not tell you about. Again, my website, which I can be contacted through, I've got a contact us page on my website. If anybody wants to go on there, I will respond within 6 to 12 hours to any emails that I get through from the contact us page. My website again is www.propeciasideeffects.co.uk. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.